So a few days ago, I turned 40, and this is an age that I've been honestly having a few mixed feelings about. Not because I was afraid of getting older, but because it means that I am now older than my mother. And that's because my beautiful mom was only 39 years young when she lost her battle with cancer. So this age has always been kind of a big landmark inside of my mind. And this year, I've been reflecting a lot about the value of life and the kinds of things that I've learned along the way. And I know that you might hear 40 and think that that sounds so old, but as for me, I feel like the best years of my life are just getting started. And that's why today I wanted to share 20 lessons that I've learned in the past 40 years that have gotten me through the ups and downs and taught me how to lead a better, happier, and richer life. And number one, let's start with the myth of too old. I remember when I was younger, I thought that my 20s would be the best years of my life. But as it turns out, all the greatest and coolest things that I've ever done were actually done in my 30s. Welcoming 2 children into the world, learning to speak a second and third language, selling everything that I own and moving overseas, and starting this YouTube channel the same week I turned 37. So please remember, age is just a number and there is no right or wrong time to do anything. There's just time and what you choose to do with it. Number 2, I've learned that having courage doesn't mean that you're fearless, but rather you're just someone who can continue to move forward despite your fears. I've lived so much of my life in the shadow of my own fear, and there were things that I couldn't even admit to myself that I wanted to do because I was so scared to go after them. Whether it was fear of opening up and making myself vulnerable or the fear that I might fail, I had to learn to walk beside my fears so that I could stop letting them control my life. Number 3, you only fail when you give up. When I start feeling like a failure, there's this Japanese proverb that I read over and over again. And when you translate it, it reads, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And sometimes our failures can be great teachers. Sometimes failures are there to teach you what doesn't work, or something important about yourself. So don't think of a failure as an ending, but rather as a beginning of something new and a new chance. And take those lessons that you've learned to heart and move forward towards a better and more successful future. Number 4. Practice makes progress. I remember when I first started decluttering my home, I was an emotional wreck. Going through the garage today, trying to get ready for our move, and I found a box of sentimental items that you can probably see behind me. There's just something so nostalgic about finding your mom's hand purse with a signed note from 1992, which was dated just a month or so before she died. Just tough stuff, guys. So nostalgic. And it was so hard, but I knew that it was also the right thing to do because all of these things were holding me back. And so as I practiced and as I continued to improve, things just got better and better. And it's kind of like muscles that you have to keep working them in order for them to get stronger and develop. Don't try to chase this idea of perfection because perfection is unattainable. As if to illustrate my point right now, the trash collectors are collecting trash out front. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's super noisy in here and my microphone tends to pick up extra noises. So I could let this little interruption faze me and get all out of sorts, or I could take this chance to ask you to go down and hit that little red subscribe button to subscribe to my channel and join our minimalist family where we focus on progress over perfection. I'm gonna wait a little bit until they go to the end of the street because this is really loud.
A few minutes later.
Number 5, analysis is not equivalent to action. It can feel really, really good to start planning something and to map out your ideas, but you have to be careful not to get stuck in this analysis paralysis where you're only planning and never taking action. There's no such thing as a perfect plan. There's no such thing as something going perfectly every time. There's a point that you need to decide, okay, I have planned enough and it's time for me to actually go do the thing. Number 6, focus on the positive. So I've really tried to make it a habit to focus on the positive And even when I'm feeling negative, to try to do things that bring me back to that positive place. And I found that when I focus on the positive, I attract more positive things into my life. And then if I start engaging in negativity, it becomes a spiral of downward negativity. And if I am entering this negative mindset, try to look for ways to get myself out of that and back on the right track. Number 7, suffering isn't a competition. I've always been a competitive person, but I never realized that my competitiveness could keep me trapped inside a victim mentality. There is no gold medal for most miserable at the Trauma Olympics. This is one of the hardest lessons that I learned far too late, and just because I feel like my life has been harder or worse than someone else's doesn't mean that I get to look at them and go, I've been through more than you. Yes, losing my mother when I was 9 was hard, and growing up with an alcoholic dad was tough. And I can't even begin to describe to you how bad it sucks to lose 8 people in 1 year, as well as your childhood home. And the fact that I can talk about this now with you without crying actually shows how far I've come. I had to do a lot of deep internal work to heal the darkness inside of me. And I always go back to this one passage that I wrote after a therapy session, which goes, "The depth and degree of your suffering does not negate or diminish mine, just as the depth and degree of my suffering does not negate or diminish yours." And this idea kind of goes hand in hand with number 8, which is that you never know what someone else is going through. Sometimes we just need a reminder that often it's the heaviest burdens that are invisible to us. One of the ways that this lesson hit home for me recently was when the actor Chadwick Boseman from Black Panther passed away, and one of his co-stars from a different movie was talking about how he felt guilty because he saw how Boseman was being treated by his wife, and he had a special masseur, and he told his wife he thought he was a little precious. And then later, only to find out that actually he was battling cancer and he died not long after that. I think that it's important for us to really remember that we don't always see the heavy burdens that other people are carrying. So it's a good practice to try to be kind and lead with compassion and stop judging other people when you truly might not understand what they're dealing with at the time. Number 9, give your kids what they actually need. One of the criticisms that I get as a minimalist mom here on YouTube is that my kids don't have enough toys or they don't have enough stuff, and we are somehow depriving them of their childhood, when in reality, the most important things that you can give your kids isn't things at all, but rather things like financial literacy or skills that they can use to become well-adjusted and happy and successful human beings. So instead of trying to give them 38 presents on Christmas, focus on imparting the knowledge and skills that you've learned throughout your life that have really helped you. I moved out when I was 18 and I was missing so many life skills. I didn't know anything about like financial literacy or budgeting. In fact, I'm not even sure my dad budgeted his money because he was constantly spending it on buying things and cars and antiques and collectibles and other stuff. And so that's why now as a mother, I always talk about budgeting with my kids. I always show them how much money things cost. And I'm trying to teach them the things that I didn't know when I left home at 18 that helped me survive in the world. So remember, teaching your kids the skills that they need to be happy, successful, healthy, and well-adjusted human beings is so much more important than anything you could buy them at the store. Number 10. Things don't make you rich. Nowadays, it seems like people live in constant pursuit of more or better or bigger. As a minimalist, I've really come to realize that owning a lot of stuff isn't what makes you rich. And too many people are spending money that they don't have on stuff that they don't need to impress people that they don't even like or care about. To me, true wealth isn't measured by an arbitrary number in a bank account or the brand of clothes in my closet, but in the richness of my experiences and having the time, the space, and the energy to put towards the things that actually matter to me. Number 11. Avoid debt. I've always naturally distrusted debt, even when I was working in the mall in retail and we got these cards for our store and we would get, I think it was a 20% employee discount. I made it a habit when I bought things in the store and used my employee discount to always pay off the balance immediately right after I made that purchase. If you have to go into debt to buy something, it's probably not worth it. Number 12, if you really think about it, time is the most valuable resource because you can always save more money, but you can never turn back the stroke of the clock. Start thinking of your time like a currency and you'll spend it on things that actually matter. Number 13, it's okay not to fit in. I've always struggled with this feeling that I never quite fit in, and I think a lot of you can probably relate to this. And I would say that as I've gotten older, it's become even harder to fit in, but I care about it less and less and less. I think when you're someone who's moved as often as I have, you realize that it's really tough to not only build new friendships in the places that you move to, because people already have established social circles and friendships that have lasted for a long time, but then it's also harder to maintain the friendships from your past. So I wouldn't say that it gets easier with time, but rather it becomes mentally easier not to fit in. Number 14, don't trust everything you see on the internet. So literally right before I made this video, I got an ad served to me on YouTube where it was like, everyone who visits this page will get $1,000, and they make it look like it's from Mr. Beast. And just running a quick Google search revealed that this is a common scam on YouTube. So be careful out there. And if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Number 15, comfort rituals. The things that brought me comfort when I was younger are still things that I lean on now when I'm feeling stressed out or overwhelmed or I just feel sad. Sometimes I go back to those things like movies from my childhood or books that I loved, and I read them or I watch them again. It's totally okay to do these things and not feel guilty about it whatsoever, because having comfort rituals like this to self-soothe is really a good form of self-care. Number 16, not all friendships are meant to last forever. I think that books and movies and pop culture in general can give us unrealistic expectations of what friendships can look like. And I always thought that friendship was something that was going to last a lifetime. But in reality, there are times when friendships are just meant for a certain time or space. Maybe they are a byproduct of you living in a certain area, or you being a certain age and having a group of friends with similar interests. I used to feel guilty in the past when I wasn't able to maintain friendships because either I moved away or they moved away or our interests changed or we were just in different stages of our life. And you can still be grateful for those people and your friendships with them, and also be okay with letting it fade. Number 17, boundaries are important. I used to be a chronic people pleaser and I would say yes to everything and everyone, and people just walked all over me, and I had no one to blame for it but myself, because I just let them do it. So it was really important for me to learn to set boundaries and not say yes to everything, and learn that no is a complete sentence in itself, and it's not a bad word. Every time I say no to something, I'm saying yes to something else, and sometimes what I'm saying yes to is my own comfort and peace of mind. Number 18, the spotlight effect. I used to care a lot about what other people thought about me, and I thought that they were looking at how I dressed and what shoes I was wearing and what my hair looked like and what my makeup looked like, and did they notice that my lips were so thin. But now what I've realized is most people aren't noticing those things about you at all, because most people are actually so concerned with worrying about what other people are noticing about them. And in psychology, this is called the spotlight effect. And when you take this philosophy to heart, you realize that no one cares and you should just go about your life and live it how you want. Number 19, remain unbothered. There are times when people are going to notice you and also have problems with you. If you're someone who worries a lot about what other people think about you, stop caring, because a lot of criticism comes from a place of judgment from people who are unhappy with their own lives or themselves. And if someone can't even like themselves, Why should it matter what they think of you? And number 20 on this list, small steps mean big results. When you look at someone who is happy and successful, it's easy for you to look at them in that place and think that they were an overnight success or they got there without effort. But more often than not, these people didn't become happy or successful overnight, but rather through a series of small action steps that grew and compounded over time. Remember that you are always one decision away from a completely different life. And when things get too overwhelming for you, you don't need to worry about that big far off goal that you had, but instead just focus on taking that one small step that's right in front of your face. And if you want to know more about this topic, go and check out this video with 10 small ways that you can improve your life starting right now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like and consider going down and hitting the little red subscribe button to subscribe to my channel and join our minimalist family. I hope to see you around again soon. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.